Hi everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll. Today I want to talk about continuing on with what to do if your child has low self-esteem and what are some other tactics and strategies to help them realize that even though they might have a learning disability or struggle with ADHD or whatever they're struggling with in terms of learning or behavior, that they are not alone, and helping them to realize how their brain works differently and that there's nothing wrong with them and that they're not broken. So one of my tips I want to give today is to teach your child about their brain. So for example, it's a lot of kids and a lot of parents just think, think of the brain as this piece of almost hardware, like a computer maybe, or the engine of a car, and it's the way it is and it can't be changed. And they don't understand why their brain is working the way it is. They don't even think much about it. They almost just see the struggles they're having as part of their identity, that it's just them, right? So if I'm struggling with learning, it's just me, Lorraine, that's how I am. And for example, if your child is struggling with impulse control, focus, aggression, any of that type of stuff, what I find can help children understand phenomenally well in terms of what is going on in their brain is to explain that they have, and obviously there's a lot more to their brain than just their lower and higher brain levels, but to simplify it so they can begin to understand what's going on, is to talk firstly about their cortex, which is their higher brain levels, the part of the brain that's responsible for things like, or for executive functioning. So things like reasoning, planning, focus, impulse control, organizing, critical thinking, all of those things we want kids to be able to do, and those very things that help them to be successful in school and in life. And what I call the cortex, especially for younger children, is the wise old owl. And that's taken from Goldie Hawn's Mind Up curriculum, which is used in schools in British Columbia. And so I explained that the wise old owl is very calm and can think very logically, and that's why we call him the wise old owl. And then we have the guard dog, so our amygdala, our brain stem, which is for survival. And we definitely need that part of our brain for situations like we're walking, down the street and a car kind of comes out of nowhere and we need to react quickly. If we rely on our wise old owl, we might not make it, right? But what I explain to them is that their amygdala, or their lower brain, or their brain stem, which is their guard dog, can basically be on alert all the time and be kind of running the show. And really what we want is we want the wise old owl doing most of the work and being the cortex, and we want the guard dog to be just working in actual true emergencies, which none of us are able to totally do. But when kids understand that and they understand how their brain is working, all of a sudden they understand, oh, that's why, I overreact, or why I get really angry sometimes. And then you can talk about how we can change that and create influences so that they aren't so reactive and so forth. And I might do the same with a kid who's struggling with dyslexia. I'll tell them, typically dyslexics read from the right side of their brain. The left side of the brain is where the language center is. The right side of the brain is where we're going to see things as a whole. So that's why you have a hard time breaking the word down into smaller units or smaller chunks. And what we need to do is we need to get your left side of the brain working. And all of a sudden, it's not like an instant fix, obviously, for their self-esteem or their self-image, but it helps them to understand that this issue they're having, it's not their identity. It's just like if you have a broken arm and nobody's known how to fix it yet. And, we need to find a way to do that. And obviously that's what I do in my program, and is work on nourishing the brain and then building new connections, strengthening those connections, and creating better brain organization. The other thing that can really help is to teach your child, and we do this as well, so it's definitely something we have to start modeling as parents, is to stop comparing, but to stop comparing likes. Comparing is natural. We're all going to do it. We cannot eliminate that part of our brain. But to stop comparing in terms of, I'm not as good as this kid, and this kid in reading, so therefore that means I'm dumb. And to point out, well, yeah, these kids might be really good at reading, but what are you really good at? that they are not. So one mom that I worked with, she explained to her daughter, for example, that her daughter really struggled with reading and she really felt poorly about herself because her younger sister could read better than her. But she explained, yes, but your younger sister doesn't have the best social skills. Her younger sister really struggled with sometimes being the bully, being too rude, having a hard time making friends, and it had always been an ongoing thing. And so whenever we can kind of show how these different intelligences, which I talked about before, can influence our success, and how there's not just reading, being able to read or being able to do math or being able to do well in school is not the definition of success or intelligence. That can go a long way. And then leading into that, the third thing I want to mention is role models. So I really, really recommend, like, especially if you're doing some kind of version of homeschooling this year, and even if you're not, have your child, do it with your child, have them learn about other people who've become successful and have dyslexia or have learning disabilities or, had ADHD, whatever the case may be, maybe, even autism. My very favorite story in the whole world is Barbara Arrowsmith. If you have not heard of Barbara Arrowsmith's story, a woman who in the 1950s was diagnosed as like severely mentally retarded and was more or less told she was hopeless, and struggled with this right into almost her 20s until she retrained her brain and so forth, and now is like the pioneer in brain training and neuroplasticity. So when kids can hear incredible stories like that and have them research, how these people overcame it, and it doesn't mean they all overcame their issue, but how they overcame the struggles. So I really think that it's important to point out to kids, that there's not just one type of intelligence, and also to make them aware of how their brain is working differently, how the gifts that can come with. So I've talked before about their superpowers. Is it ADHD? Is it attention hyperactivity disorder? Or is it what I call highly creative and energetic disposition? Right? And maybe it's just there's an imbalance in the brain, the biochemistry that's causing these problems. But if we reset that, then all of a sudden these disorders can become wonderful, even wonderful dispositions. So please let me know in the comments below, what do you do to help your child, mitigate the effects of low self-esteem and so forth related to a learning or behavior disorder? And is there anything that resonates or that you think you want to try after hearing this video? Thanks for watching.